Next on the news, the week-long celebration of Catholic education kicks off around the country and here at home.
Bishop Robert Brennan getting a high-tech welcome during his first Catholic Schools Week as leader of the Diocese of Brooklyn.
Then, crisis in Ukraine. The United States calls for an emergency meeting at the UN as diplomats face off over escalating tensions in the region. All this as peace activists ask Pope Francis to help prevent a war. And former Governor Andrew Cuomo is off the hook as the fifth and final criminal case against him is dropped. I'm Christine Persichetti. Current News starts right now.
You didn't do that with the remote. That
we did
sets it on its own.
We have it on code right here.
The Bishop of Brooklyn kicking off a week celebrating Catholic education. Bishop Robert Brennan getting an up-close look at how students in the Diocese of Brooklyn are programmed. The St. Bartholomew Catholic Academy's robotics team is gearing up for competition and showing off their skills. Current News' Jessica Easthope has the story from Elmhurst.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good. Thank you. I'm looking forward to this.
Bishop Robert Brennan is seated front and center in class, and these students are taking him to school on STEM. The St. Bartholomew Catholic Academy Sharp Blades were Bishop Brennan's first introduction into Catholic Schools Week. The robotics team on a mission to win an upcoming competition,
to get as many points as possible,
and break boundaries in Catholic education.
We don't only learn about the robot, we also learn about cells and reproduction, and it's enlightening.
St. Bartholomew considers itself a small school with big pride, with just 160 students. Close to 70% of the school is undocumented. St. Bartholomew pastor, Father Rick Buther, says that comes with a big sacrifice.
We want to show that sacrifice really pays off and shows a new generation of young Catholics showing greatness.
Bishop Brennan says the sacrifice extends beyond money as parents enter a partnership with the school to give their children the best education possible.
They work away at people's sacrifice and they make the commitment and they really do what they can to make it happen for their children.
Nearly half of the school receives scholarships, and as more students get involved in STEM and other science programs, Principal Denise Gonzalez says they're empowered and prepared to practice their craft and their faith outside the classroom.
They acquire this confidence, so our families, they sacrifice, especially after the pandemic.
For these students, attending St. Bartholomew has driven them toward a new passion, one that's allowing them to see how science and faith collide.
You think that science and religion don't have anything to correlate with each other, when in fact there are things that do. In the Bible they say that the start of the world there's light, while in science there is an explosion which basically starts off the universe.
The Sharp Blades will compete virtually in February in a first Lego League competition against 30 other schools. In Elmhurst, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Bishop Brennan went on to say how impressed he was with the schools he's visited since coming to the diocese.
It's exciting to be here at St. Bartholomew's. I've had the chance to visit a couple of schools along the way, but now I'm rather excited to be able to dedicate this week in a very intense way to visiting our schools. And from the moment I arrived here, I could see how impressive this school, like so many of our schools, is. And I've met a number of parents upon coming in, and I get a sense of their appreciation, profound appreciation for what this school does for their children, and also for some of the support that is given through Futures in Education and through the scholarship program in the schools. It really, really makes a difference.
Bishop Brennan will visit Our Lady of Hope Catholic Academy in Queens on Tuesday. And here's more info on Catholic schools nationally. There are over 5,200 Catholic elementary schools in the U.S. that are educating roughly 1.3 million students. And at the high school level, there are over 1,200 high schools with more than 500,000 kids enrolled. Catholic schools are the largest network of private schools in the United States. The race and ethnic breakdown is also representative of the country. Over 73% of those enrolled in Catholic schools are white, followed by close to 17% Hispanic or Latino, and just under 8% African American. With remote learning being one hallmark of the ongoing pandemic, Catholic schools around the nation could soon get some assistance from the government. $7 billion in assistance, to be exact. It's all a part of the American Rescue Plan, and according to the FCC, it'll fund a fresh round of school broadband initiatives. And already, several hundred religious schools in the country are on the list to receive grants. Also tonight, a war of words at the UN.
Imagine how uncomfortable you would be if you had 100,000 troops sitting on your border.
Tensions between Russia and Ukraine escalating, while pilgrims asking the Pope to help prevent war. Now, the latest on the crisis in Ukraine. The United States and Russia engaging in a diplomatic brawl on Monday as the two powers battled over the crisis on the Ukrainian border at the United Nations. The meeting of the 15-nation council, which was requested by the United States last week, began with objections by Russia and China.
We are being asked to convene a Security Council meeting on unfounded accusations that we have refuted frequently. Furthermore, the open format for discussion proposed by the US on this extremely sensitive topic is making this a classic example of megaphone diplomacy.
In his remarks, the Russian ambassador said fears of war are unjustified, saying the United States was making a, quote, hodgepodge of accusations, but no specific facts. Meantime, the American ambassador to the UN made a plea for peace and security, asking the member councils to put themselves in Ukraine's shoes.
Imagine how uncomfortable you would be if you had 100,000 troops sitting on your border in the way that these troops are sitting on the border with Ukraine. For us, this is about peace and security. It's about honoring the UN Charter that calls on us as members of the Security Council to protect peace and security.
The meeting adjourned with no action taken. Expressing his own concerns over the situation between Russia and Ukraine, Pope Francis is now praying for any conflict to end in peace. The call to action comes after a group of peace activists presented a letter and a poster to the Holy Father, encouraging him to help bring people together and discuss options other than war. As a result, Pope Francis dedicated January 26th as a day of prayer for peace in Ukraine. The UN meeting comes as U.S. officials say they see signs the Russian military is prepared for battle, including sending vital medical supplies to treat the wounded. Sam Kiley has more from Kiev, Ukraine.
U.S. intelligence officials have confirmed that they believe that blood supplies are being sent to Russian troops who are supposedly exercising close to the borders with Ukraine and in Belarus. Now, this is being interpreted by the United States as yet another indicator that some kind of military action against Ukraine, a cross-border incursion at the very least, could be imminent. From the Ukrainian perspective, they're treating these reports with some cynicism, some officials denying them, others perhaps suggesting that this is a normal part of what you would see in any military exercise. And the reason for the dissonance between the two very close allies, remember it's the United States that's the biggest military donor to the Ukrainians in their effort to try to see off any potential Russian invasion, is the economy. The Ukrainians here believe that every time there is mention of an imminent threat to their country, there is capital flight, the economy takes a knock, and that ultimately could lead to political instability, all of that playing into the hands of Vladimir Putin. Sam Kiley in Kiev.
In New York City, Mayor Eric Adams announced the team who will lead his administration's affordable housing strategy. According to the mayor, this new housing leadership team will create, preserve, and maintain affordable housing in an equitable way. The announcement comes as crime concerns dominated the mayor's first weeks in office. But brushing off those concerns, Adams says affordable housing is at the top of his agenda.
The numbers are clear. Children who grow up homeless are less likely to graduate from high school. And if you are not educated, you are incarcerated for the most part.
The mayor's announcement comes as Governor Kathy Hochul requested an additional $1.6 billion in renters assistance from the U.S. Treasury Department. This as funding for the state's program has run dry. The funeral for the second police officer killed in Harlem is happening this week. Both the wake and funeral mass for Officer Wilbert Mora will be held at St. Patrick's Cathedral, just like his partner's services last week. A viewing service will be held Tuesday, February 1st from 1 to 8 p.m. Mora's funeral mass will take place Wednesday, February 2nd at 10 a.m. Be sure to tune in to Currents News online Wednesday as we carry Officer Mora's funeral live. That's at Currents News on Facebook and Twitter. New York City police officers who don't get vaccinated by the end of next week are now facing termination. That's according to a new letter from the Sergeants Benevolent Association. New hires who haven't shown proof of a second dose and those placed on unpaid leave for not initially complying with the October mandate have until February 11th to get vaccinated. The NYPD is expected to notify those officers in jeopardy of losing their jobs on Monday. While it's unclear how many cops could be affected, about 5,000 of them have formally requested religious and medical exemptions to the vaccine. Experts are asking if the pandemic could be coming to an end now that hospitalizations and cases are trending down in parts of the country. That's also leading to a bigger discussion about COVID restrictions and whether mask wearing and social distancing will become a thing of the past. Daryl Forges reports the latest.
Some uplifting news in the fight against COVID-19. Positive COVID-19 cases going in the right direction, downward. Johns Hopkins University reports positive cases have gone down 30% from a week ago. Hospitalizations also down 11% from a week ago, according to the Department of Health and Human Services. Some governors are ready to move on from the pandemic.
We need to move away from the pandemic, and we ask the president to help give us clear guidelines on how we can return to a greater state of normality.
Some states and cities are easing some restrictions. In Colorado, state public health officials removed the requirement that people must show proof of vaccination to attend public indoor events of more than 500 attendees in several counties, including Denver. San Francisco lifting mask mandates for the vaccinated for offices and gyms on Tuesday.
I certainly share the optimism that we're in a better place now, and we will be in a better place in a few weeks. But I don't think that means that we should take our foot off the accelerator.
On the vaccine front, Moderna's COVID-19 vaccine has received full approval from the FDA. And one expert says a vaccine for children under the age of 5 could be available by March.
And I'm hopeful that you could see some movement on trying to entertain that application earlier. Ultimately, the decision resides with FDA.
Daryl Forges, Currents News.
That news comes as Mayor Adams announced Sunday that COVID cases in the city are down more than 80% since early January. Vaccinations are also up. More than 75% of all New Yorkers are fully vaccinated, 11% more than the national average. More now on Moderna receiving FDA approval. Up until now, it had only been given emergency use authorization. It's the second type of shot to get FDA approval after Pfizer. One big difference, Moderna is only for people 18 and older, while people 16 and up can get Pfizer. The approval from the FDA comes after scientific evidence from Moderna showed the shot was highly effective and safe 6 months after the second shot. Prosecutors in upstate New York are dropping their investigation into former Governor Andrew Cuomo. The criminal complaint that arose out of a scathing report by New York's Attorney General involved unwanted physical contact. The Oswego County District Attorney saying there wasn't a sufficient legal basis to bring criminal charges. He is the fourth prosecutor to investigate and then drop charges against the former governor. There's a lot more news headed your way. Overseas, a priest who devoted his life to serving ethnic groups in Vietnam's Central Highlands is killed in a confessional. And it's the image that went viral after winning Photo of the Year in an international competition. Now it's changing the lives of the people in it. Then everyone is calling this postal worker a hero. We'll tell you why in just a bit. A poignant symbol of the plight of war-torn Syria. A father and son whose bodies were maimed by the brutal conflict now have a shot at a new life. As Claudia Torres reports, this shocking yet tender picture has inspired the international community to help.
This picture was declared Photo of the Year at the 2021 Siena International Photo Awards. It's called Life's Challenges. The father's name is Munzir. He lost his leg during a bombing in Syria. His son, Mustafa, was born without arms or legs because of a chemical attack during the war that affected his mother when she was pregnant. The picture was taken by Mehmet Aslan and is considered an accurate representation of the difficulties of the war in Syria. But it's also an ode to hope. What Mehmet never imagined was that it would one day go viral and help bring this family to Italy. The festival organizers decided to put together a fundraiser to bring the family to a center where they could receive treatment and the prostheses they need.
When we saw that the picture was being reposted by actors, famous people, and the world's most important news outlets, beyond the satisfaction of having succeeded in diffusing this photo, we began to wonder if it was enough to talk about the story as an example of the consequences of war, or if we could do something more to actually change this family's life.
Luca Venturi, the festival director, explains that they have so far managed to raise the money necessary to get the family to Italy and provide them with initial medical attention. But they still have a long road ahead of them, since they will need to raise even more money to get the boy new prostheses as he continues to grow. Venturi says it's too early to claim victory, but for the family, it's progress in their search for a better future.
That was Claudia Torres reporting. The family landed in Rome earlier in January and will later be resettled in Siena, the home of the photography festival. A horrific story out of Vietnam now. A priest stabbed to death in a confessional. Father Jusei Tran was hearing confessions on Saturday when he was attacked. The suspect was arrested. A funeral was held on Sunday for the 40-year-old Dominican priest who was ordained in 2018 and devoted his life to serving ethnic groups in Vietnam's Central Highlands. In Cuba, hundreds of people could face up to 30 years in prison after mass trials by the communist government. It stems from anti-government protests last July. Patrick Oppman has the story of one woman who doesn't know when or if she'll see her husband again.
After anti-government protests swept across Cuba in July, police arrested hundreds of the people who had taken to the streets denouncing chronic shortages and lack of basic freedoms. Teams of special forces units went house by house, searching for the protesters. 2 days after the disturbances first broke out, police and special forces troops raided the home of protester Daniel Yuel Cardenas Diaz. His wife Marbelis, who managed to film some of the violent altercation, says police fired multiple shots, one that she says grazed her husband's head and beat him, leaving a pool of blood on the living room floor.
When I saw him on the floor and they were hitting him with a baton, he was on the floor covered in blood, in a huge pool of blood. I thought he was dead.
Following Cardenas' arrest in July, Cuban state TV released video of his police interrogation to dispute accounts that he was gravely injured. According to his wife, Cardenas was convicted of sabotage and public disorder for damage the government says he caused to this gas station during the protests, and he now faces up to a 15-year sentence in jail. From her cinder block home on a dirt street, Marbelis says many Cubans are fed up with the never-ending economic hardships.
There has been no medicine, nothing. And on top of that, they sell everything in a currency that most Cubans don't have.
Despite widespread calls for amnesty for the protesters, the government is holding mass trials and handing down lengthy prison sentences. Marbelis says she lies to her 2-year-old twins when they ask where their father is, and she knows he might not be with them again for years.
And these people didn't kill anyone. They didn't put bombs. They threw rocks and asked for liberty, that was all. And they're being sentenced to more than 20 years in prison.
According to Cuban prosecutors, nearly 800 people were charged for allegedly taking part in the protests. More than 170 of them were convicted of crimes like sedition, vandalism, and disruption of public order. After the protests in July, Cuban-American bishops called for the immediate release of those detained, saying, "We Cuban-American bishops join in solidarity with the Cuban people in their quest for responses to their human rights and needs. We are deeply troubled by the aggressive reaction reaction of the government to the peaceful manifestations, recognizing that violence engenders violence. Still to come on Currents News, New Yorkers started their week digging out from this weekend snowstorm, but there's always a silver lining.
People are always walking around here, chatting. It's a great way to get your art out. It's a great way to bring joy to people.
Out west, an annual winter carnival has people braving the weather to enjoy a little communal time together and some pretty spectacular ice sculptures. In the Big Apple, cleanup efforts are underway after a winter storm pummeled the region, dumping over a foot of snow in some parts of the city. In Brooklyn, the heaviest accumulation was recorded in Bay Ridge, which came in shy of a foot at 11 inches. But Long Island took the hardest hit from the weekend's winter nor'easter, officials recording over 20 inches of snow in parts of Suffolk County. Meanwhile, in Minnesota, they're laughing at winter with the help of some snowy sculptures. Thousands came out for the annual St. Paul Winter Carnival, and as Adam Duxler reports, the highlight of the century-old celebration is a pretty cool contest at the state fairgrounds.
We like to entertain people, we like people to have fun, we like them to come out to Carnival and enjoy winter, and like I said earlier, laugh at winter.
Whether you laugh or not, the party at Vulcan Park is enough to make you smile. And lets you imagine the fight to stay warm as a literal fight.
Where you have the king of fire and you have the king of ice and snow, and they do battle, and the Vulcans usually, well, we're 124-0.
And at the center of it all, the snow sculpture competition, a chance to turn cold, hard snow into cold, hard cash. And this year's field is stacked as thick as the snow is packed.
An ice cream cone.
The igloo one with the trees over there, the eagle here is amazing.
I think the octopus with the holding the blocks is pretty cool.
But as the artists scrape and shape,
The sketch is a bison with an eagle on top and a Ojibwe patterned filigree underneath.
they insist it's all about the love of the game.
It's a great way to interact with your audience because people are always walking around here, chatting. It's a great way to get your art out. It's a great way to bring joy to people, and that's why we're here.
And bringing families together, especially when winter starts to feel like a real drag.
All of the people you see here are out here because they love what they're doing.
That is really cool. Again, that was Adam Duxler reporting. The winner of the first prize sculpture takes home $1,000 and hopefully no frostbite. And finally tonight, a mail carrier in a small New Hampshire town is being called a hero for paying attention to the little things. And thankfully, it led to saving a woman's life. Kayla Berridge noticed one of her elderly customers hadn't picked up her mail in days, so the postmaster requested a welfare check. The police found the woman on the floor, trapped under items that had fallen on her, took her to a nearby hospital for treatment. The authorities say Kayla's actions probably saved the woman's life, but this humble mail carrier says it's her job.
I like this job because I love my customers and getting to know them, and I don't feel like it was anything. I feel like people cared more and just paid attention. It's just, I don't know, something we should all do.
So true. The elderly woman had hypothermia and was dehydrated, but is expected to make a full recovery. That's great news. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.